One of the most joyful things Alisa could imagine was the gallery without Mrs. Emery. In her absence, everything returned to stillness, and Alisa could return to her books. Unfortunately, today Mrs. Emery was well and truly here, and she was in one of her whirlwind moods, pulling down old pieces, hanging new ones up, and flinging around papers and rugs with the fervour of a spring clean. One of the banished paintings had a heavy gold frame that knocked Alisa's ankles as she shuffled it across the floor and down into the basement. At the bottom step, she flicked on the light switch, illuminating the gleaming graveyard. These were the relegated paintings. She always felt that their abandoned spirits had a slightly crestfallen air, as though they rather resented being messed up again with other ideas, that perhaps it reminded them of when they'd lived only in the minds of their creators. A stack of boxes that Aunt Sisler had deposited here for her sat in the corner, most filled with books from her father's bookshelf. They'd been in Sisler's garage for over a decade, but now that she was leaving, they needed sorting. Alisa leaned the painting carefully against the others and crouched down to peel back the masking tape from a waxy fruit box. The top book inside the box was covered with a fine layer of dust. She blew on it and smoothed the dust away to reveal writing embossed in the leather. Sketches at Third River by Todd and Miriam Fisher, Penny Books, 1997. She ran a finger over her parents' names. This one had been on their bookshelf, although she couldn't remember ever having looked through it before. She leafed through the pages. Here was a line drawing of a brolga, its wings outstretched. Here a child asleep in a basket, its small hands curled beneath its chin. And here was a watercolour that seemed almost to glow from the page, of a large white egret, captured just as its bill touched the surface of the water, a moment betrayed by one slick ripple. "Alisa, I need you up here." Mrs. Emery's voice was loud, even in the basement. Alisa snapped the book shut, placed it back in the box and hurried upstairs. It was a cold, clear day outside, and there was no one about. Alisa itched to get back to the boxes, but Mrs. Emery was in high spirits and unusually communicative as she regaled her with her plans for Berlin. Alisa's phone buzzed during one of Mrs. Emery's longer monologues. She brought it to her ear. Aunt Sisler was laughing, and there was another voice in the background. "Hello?" "Oh, hi, sweetheart. Just wanted to see how you're getting along with the boxes." "Is that Stephen? Is he still with you?" "Yes. His conference finished yesterday, but he's staying on a couple more days to help me pack." Alisa's stomach tightened. There was a moment's heavy silence. "I found Mum and Dad's sketchbook," Alisa managed finally. "Are you sure you don't want it?" Sisler sighed. "It all belongs to you, darling. I'm not taking much. The boys have found me a small apartment, so there'll be limited space. Eileen's still happy for you to keep the boxes at the gallery for a bit, isn't she?" Eileen Emery appeared from the office looking pointedly at her watch. "Maybe. I think so. Call you later. I've got to go." Alisa contemplated a lunch break. She wasn't hungry. She stood up anyway, just as the door to the gallery swung open to a silhouette of someone against the outside glare. A heavy scent of eucalyptus filled her nose, and it made her dizzy and her vision blurry. A fizzing started up in her head, as though she'd taken in too much air before a dive. She could smell it, the cool, rich air above whirl-pooling river water. Then she was falling. Her arm, flung out in front of her to catch her fall, seemed trapped by an invisible, viscous liquid, and all the details of her hand were magnified, the refractive cells of her skin, the ridges of her fingernails. The shrill of cicadas rang in her ears as she closed her eyes.